Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Ken. This is the No Money Real Estate Podcast. I'm super excited about this show. And it's, you know what I love the most about it now is it's getting a lot of attention. It's getting a lot of downloads. We have thousands of hours of the video version of the show on YouTube, which means I get to meet some freaking crazy guests that are doing the biggest things in Canada in real estate. And my guest today is the female version of me. I hate to say that because she's a lot more attractive than I am, but she was a Vancouver police officer. She left policing because she had young kids at home and didn't want to be in that line of work. She got into real estate and now she's building a dynasty without a dime of her own money, and you're going to meet her right after this. Hey, my name's Ken Dunn, and I'm a real estate investor. I want to welcome you to the No Money Real Estate Podcast. On this show, I'm going to interview elite-level real estate investors from all over North America, and I'm going to help you to see one thing that all successful real estate investors have in common. They built their portfolios without using a dime of their own money. I've got a portfolio of $300 million in real estate. That includes resorts, apartment buildings, commercial buildings, and I built the entire portfolio without using a dime of my own money. Real estate is a business that anybody can get into, but the strategies that those titan real estate investors use to build massive portfolios have been kept secret for decades. Now, because of this show, I'm going to reveal them to you. So let's get started. Man, I like literally, Andrea, when I first started talking to you and you told me that you were with the Vancouver Police and then everything else started coming out, I was like, holy crap, who's playing the sick joke on me that I can't believe it. So I want you to start off by giving us the background. Tell us your background before real estate, how you got into real estate, why you're doing it. I mean, lay it on me. I just want to sit back and smile.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, Ken. Appreciate the opportunity to share my story with you. So when I was in university at Simon Fraser in the Vancouver area, I'd always wanted to do policing. So everything that I did was towards that goal. So when I was in my last semester of university, I applied for the Vancouver City Police Department. And a few months later, I was in and I was at Academy. And so it just moved that quickly because I'm a very focused person. So one of the things that led me to policing is I didn't want to sit in an office all day and be doing the same thing over and over again. So I was kind of looking for the variety, for something that I perceived to be fun. and then, when you get into it. So I started originally when I was in police academy, you go to school for 3 months, then you're on the road for 3 months, then back to school for 3 months. And so I started in a rich area of Vancouver out towards UBC. So that was easy going. I made one arrest in 3 months.
Oh my God.
It seemed really slow, right? But what was funny is when I graduated police academy, I got sent down to Skid Row. So complete polar opposites of,
An arrest,
drug dealing, prostitution, family disputes and so forth. So, it was quite an education while I was down there for 3 years. And there wasn't much that I haven't seen during that time, and got to do a little bit of undercover work. And that was fun as well, but I ended up going the detective route because I always kind of was focused towards, maybe working my way up to robbery, homicide, that type of thing. So you start out at the bottom, which was property crime. And, so every time that you get to learn something and level up, it's a wonderful experience, right? And so I took everything that I could. And so I'd go out to some of these prisons and I'd be interviewing prisoners and things like that. And just really leveling up on my interview and interrogation courses and stuff, because the more knowledge and skills that you build, the easier it is to move up the line.
Absolutely.
Now, that being said, when I was on holidays with my husband and 4 months pregnant, we used to listen to a lot of talk radio. So I heard an interview with Don Campbell, who wrote this book called Real Estate Investing in Canada.
Yes.
And I am an avid reader. And this was the first time I'd heard about a Canadian-based real estate book. I had read lots of different books, when I started my policing career, lots of different books about everything from stock trading to buying a business to real estate. So I was very intrigued, got the book right away, joined the real estate investment network back in 2005, and really started to immerse myself in the real estate education. And so one of the things that my husband and I did was we were going to a wedding that summer, listened to the weekend seminar of CDs, and decided we would move to Alberta, because back then it was all about Alberta because the price of oil was going up, the economy was rocking and rolling, really good landlord-tenant laws. So we made the decision to move to Red Deer, Alberta, and we bought a fourplex. We lived in it while we fixed it up. And then, the market was going up at the same time. So we just dumb luck as new investors. And so we refinanced it out and started buying more properties. And it just kind of built from there.
So you made the decision to leave policing when you guys decided to move to Alberta? Like, was that all part of that experience? Because
that was all part of it. Yeah.
Well, it's just, I'm thinking, it's not an easy decision. I don't know how long you were in law enforcement, but when I was in my 14th year, and kind of right at that halfway point where, you could get a pension as early as 25. So you're almost closer to retirement. And it was a tough decision to leave, but I realized I wanted to have more money in my life and I wanted to have a better life for my kids. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, how long were you on the job and what actually made you leave it? Because it's not an easy career to leave.
Yeah, so I was 6 years in when I was 8 months pregnant, and we decided to move to Alberta. And I think part of it is because I'd been in the rougher areas for the first 3 years of my policing career.
Right.
You're around the worst of humanity all the time, and it's not an easy job. And so when you look at, do I really want to be doing shift work for a long period of time? Do I really want to be waiting for a pension that's managed by the government that may or may not be there by the time I retire? And do I want my kids raised by somebody else? Because with the long working days that we had, plus commuting back and forth, we were living in Port Coquitlam, commuting down to downtown Vancouver, I would have had to hire a nanny. So for me, it was kind of like, what's the point of having children if I'm not going to be around? That was just my own feeling. So I think it was partly right timing to hear the message of the power of the leverage of real estate, and the fact that, my husband was a gas fitter and plumber by trade. An immediate $10 an hour increase to work in Red Deer, lower cost of living, meant that I could stay at home while the kids were young.
So when you first got started in taking, full time in real estate and started taking it seriously, what did you do first? Because I know over your journey, you did some flips, you've had some multifamilies, your passion is development today, which I really want to talk to you about. But I'm just curious about, I'm going to start asking all my guests, what was the first deal they did? Where did they start? Because I want to see if there's any trends there. So where did you start? What was your first deal?
Yeah, so the first deal was actually my mom gifted me $15,000. So I had 5% down to buy my first property in Port Coquitlam that had a basement suite. And so that was my first kind of go at investment real estate. And I would call myself an accidental landlord because I bought that property because I needed the rental income to kind of offset the mortgage. So I hadn't even heard about Don Campbell at that point. That was a couple of years prior. But once I understood what it was, buying a fourplex in Red Deer, we bought it for less than we sold our house in Port Coquitlam. So we just dumb luck timing. We bought our place in Port Coquitlam around $250, sold it for $400. 2 years later, bought a fourplex in Red Deer for $259. Put $100,000 of renovations into it, and it went all the way up to $650 in value when we refinanced it. So we learned the power of leverage very quickly and the power of appreciation, which we haven't seen that kind of 30% increase in Alberta for quite some time. But it is what got me started. And, it never occurred to me that I couldn't do it.
Yeah, we need to come back to that for sure. Tell us about your portfolio today. Tell us what you got. I know Cranbrook is the center of your universe, but give us a view of the landscape of what you're holding today.
Yeah, so I have everything from single family houses to apartment buildings. Most of my portfolio is concentrated around central Alberta. And that was done on purpose initially because I wanted to be within an hour's drive because I was self-managing at different points. And I've also had property managers as well. And so I really wanted to be kind of within that hour drive of my properties. I also have a property down in southern Alberta, and we're closing on an apartment building in Edmonton next month. So getting into Cranbrook, a completely different province, which is a 6-hour drive away from Red Deer, was a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of a different market that offers different things like appreciation,
Nice.
like better, higher values, those types of things.
All right, now let's talk about the subject of the show. You have millions and millions of dollars in real estate. I can tell just by what you've told me. I have a feeling, given how savvy you are today, that you probably have built most of your portfolio without a dime of your own money. So
Yes.
because we know that's the case, let's talk about that. Tell me about your journey with fundraising. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'd like you to lead right into what are some tips that you have for some of the new people that are just getting into real estate investing that have found this podcast so that they can get started on the fundraising journey the easiest way possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, a bit about the Cranbrook story and using other people's money. So, when I was introduced to the Cranbrook opportunity, we met up with a gentleman who had bought part of the development out of the court system. And so, some of the land that he bought were service lots. And so, we wrote an offer on 10 of these service lots at a really good price. And he wanted a $200,000 deposit. So I phoned one of my friends who does a lot of private lending, told them about what I was doing, and asked would she lend me the money. And she said yes. So my first initial
Wow.
investment into this, well, it's $190 million build out value in Cranbrook for everything that we're doing, was with $200,000 from an investor friend of mine who gave me the money to get it started. So even a big project like this, it didn't start out that way, obviously. It started out with 10 single family lots on a golf course. But, it's about building relationship with people.
Right.
That's the big thing when it comes to raising capital is you have to build relationship with people and you have to understand what's in it for them. You need to be, it's not just about me, it's about what is the opportunity for the person who's lending me the money, and does that make sense for them? Because as you start raising capital and over the years having met many different people, for some people it's not necessarily about monthly cash flow, it's about putting their money to work, because money that's sitting is devaluing.
Yeah.
So when you look at a GIC rate of 5%, that's not even really keeping with inflation. So if your money's sitting in a GIC, you're losing money. But a lot of people who are not in the real estate realm don't really understand that. So if you're approaching friends and family who don't know anything about real estate, you're best to use examples like a GIC. So if the government's offering you 5% and I'm offering you 7%, would you be happy with that? So these are some of the questions where you really need to get to know your potential lender and understand what is their pain point. Are they tired of not keeping pace with inflation? Are they tired of giving their money to, the TD bank who's put it into a fund and all they see is all the fees coming off, and really the return on investment is going down, and it's at the mercy of the stock market.
Right.
So, there's all sorts of things where people get very discouraged when they see their hard-earned money that might be invested in an RSP because of the tax benefits, but really it's not going anywhere. And so to help educate people and for them to understand that, number one, you can self-direct your funds. Number two, there's trustees in Canada where you can send your self-directed funds to and invest in real estate at a much higher return, and it can be safe. on a first mortgage or a second mortgage, or it can be, invested into a fund like that I have for Cranbrook, for example, which is called a mutual fund trust. So as you learn and educate people, you get to understand what their risk level is, what their time frame is for when they need the money back, or if they want it invested for as long as possible because it's registered funds and they're not going to touch it for 10 years. So these are all the questions that you really need to understand what your potential lender is needing, and is it a good match for what you're offering, because we don't want to take people's money and have them not sleep at night because the risk level is too high or it didn't really fit their criteria.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so when I'm teaching people about raising money in my business, I know that a lot of my experiences around raising money personally come from the time I spent in police interrogation. And you know
Yes.
this more than anybody. What the stories that I tell them revolve around what actually happened in that interrogation. And I interrogated 18 murder suspects, and 17 of them confessed, and the average confession took me 20 hours to do. But it all started the same way. There was this direct positive confrontation, and then as soon as you did that, you kind of disappeared from the interrogation, the purpose of the interview, and you spent hours just getting to know this person and asking them questions and showing sincere interest in who they were and finding this common ground, something you had in common that you could talk about. But all of that happened because I decided that I was going to build my credibility with other people by becoming a better person, by the way I communicated, by the way that I talked, by the way that I looked. And I really went introspective and started looking at who I was and designed myself to be the type of person that other people liked. Is that just, in your opinion, what I just described? Can you see the connection? Is that an interrogation thing that I just described, or is that a business personal management thing? And how do you think that fits into raising money?
Oh, I think it's very important. And to put it in a different perspective, if anyone out there has ever done network marketing, which is probably one of the hardest businesses to be successful at, it's all about connecting with people. And even if you're very different personalities, it's about finding common ground and really taking an interest in people. So it's super important. Everything that you just described is super important when
Yeah.
it comes to raising money. Because, when we think about our thinker brain potential people, those are, people that tend to be accountants or lawyers, people that need a lot of information in order to make a decision. But once they've made the decision, they're 100% in. And so you need to really understand what that person needs from you in order to make a decision. And so then you cater or craft your conversation to give them what they need so that they can carefully consider and give you an answer.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you being here with me on the show today. I think we could go on for a couple hours talking about how somebody can turn themselves into a more attractive character, but we'll save that for another time. I would like to finish this up the way I've finished it up with every other guest and get you to give one really good, wholesome, generic, if you will, piece of advice for the newest people thinking about getting into this. If you're sitting there talking to somebody that has huge potential and they want to get into real estate investing, what's the pieces of advice you're giving them out of the gate?
Well, I think it's great to be excited, especially when you're new, but you sometimes just need to calm yourself down and really be a good listener to the person that you're asking to invest in you, because they're investing in you more than they're investing in the property. So it's really important to be a good listener and not push your agenda onto people.
I love it. I love it. Friends, really excited that you joined here with me today. If you want to connect with Andrea, go into the show's notes. We'll put all of her information there. She has an amazing fund that Canadians are allowed to put registered funds into. Your money's going to grow faster in there. If you want to learn more about that, check the notes. And as always, if you're loving the guest and the show, do me a favor and hit that 5-star review. Tell us what you love about the show. If you have any questions, ask the questions in the comments and we'll get back to you. We'll see you on the next No Money Real Estate podcast.